Hi, this is Rabbi Chaim Coffman. Welcome to our 126th installment of the Torah portion of the week. That's right, 2 weeks going. We spoke last week on Parshas Emor, which is outside of Israel. It's the parsha that everyone's gonna go through. Still a week behind for a while. We're gonna do Parshas Behar. Parshas Behar speaks about sabbatical year, Shemitah. Speaks about the Jubilee year. Speaks a lot of interesting things here. And it says, by the redemption of the land, chapter 25, verse 23, right, in the book of Leviticus, it says, the land shall not be sold in perpetuity, for the land is mine. For you are sojourners and residents with me. So it's interesting that the Torah here says that the land is mine, right? God acknowledges over here that the land is totally His. And you're only sojourners here. You're residents with me. Right? So says the Torah. Right? So now we're going to explain the end of the verse. What does it mean you are sojourners and residents? Right? What does that mean? Right? What does it represent over here? So it says Mori Varebi Aravagon Ramoshna Moshlita should be well. He brings down in Torah Vedas. Tam Vedas. And it says in the Medrash that if you're sojourners, or if you live with me in this world, right, then you're going to be, if you look at yourself as a sojourner in this world, meaning that you're living in this world temporarily, then it's like you're going to dwell with me in the next world. But he says, if you live in this world, like you think you're a resident in this world, then you're going to be a stranger. You're going to be a sojourner in the world to come. Meaning that if you look at this world as the ultimate of the next world, you're not going to have that much. Right? You're not going to enjoy that much. So he says, it's common that the Chaim, Zeichet Tzadik Livracho, may his name be blessed, Chaim said there are people that think they're going to live forever, right? They live in this world, fancy cars, fancy homes, right? Fancy everything, fame, right? They think they're going to live forever, right? And it's brought down in the Zohar, right? In the Holy Zohar, that a person lives in this world, and he thinks that this world is his. He's going to live for 1,000 years. And he doesn't think about his death. Right? He doesn't think he's ever going to leave this world, right? Fame, right? He doesn't think he's ever going to leave this world because he's so attached to it. His thoughts, his desires, etc. So he thinks he's here forever. And people live that way. I mean, we're going to go into detail about it. Right? But people think that this world is the ultimate. You tell them, don't you know, in the end, you're just going to die. Everybody's going to die. I really hate to break the news, right, everyone, but everyone is surely going to die at some point. But most people live like they think they're going to live forever. Now, they may see other people that die, but they say, what does that have to do with me? People get sick, other things happen. Okay, right? But what does that have to do with me? You tell me that a person knows. They certainly know that they're going to die. But they see when someone else gets sick, it doesn't apply to him. So therefore, when he gets to the next world, what's going to happen? So even if he manages to get to the next world, he's going to be like a guest. Because he didn't prepare himself. He didn't prepare himself in this world for the future world. What did he do? He just gave in to his desires. He gave in to his base desires. So he lived in this world like this world was the ultimate. And by living in this world as the ultimate, what's going to happen? In the next world, it's going to be temporary for him. Right? He's going to be like a guest. He's not going to fathom a lot that goes on. He's not going to understand, a lot that's happening. So he gives up a lot in the next world to enjoy this world. But he says, someone who dwells in this world, and they dwell in this world as a stranger, and they understand this world is not the ultimate. It's only a prosdor. It's only a corridor. as the Mishnah in Pirkei Avos says, right? It says in Ethics of Our Fathers, it's a corridor to the next world. Right? And a person has to prepare himself. Because the next world is where it all happens. Right? And so now let's break this down. Let's break this down. There are people that think, right, as we mentioned before, according to the Zohar, there are many people that think that this world, okay, people get sick, people die, what does that have to do with me? No connection. They're going to live, they're going to enjoy, they're going to go according to their own desires, right? So what does the Zohar say? Anybody who does that, right, without doing tshuva, without repentance, so in the next world they're not going to look so good. In the next world, since they were planted in, so it's measure for measure. Since they were planted in this world, and they lived in this world, and they thought this world was the ultimate, very good. They thought this world was the ultimate. So they're here living the good life, so to speak. Comes to the next world, they don't think the next world is the ultimate. Right? So therefore, measure for measure, what's going to happen? They're going to get to the next world, and they're going to be looked at as being there temporarily. Right? In other words, they're not going to enjoy. They're certainly not going to enjoy as much. How could they enjoy as much? Because they never thought that was the ultimate. They only thought this world was. So now we're speaking about a case where somebody has a portion of the world to come. Right? They get something in the next one. We're not talking about someone who dies like a dog. Right? No offense to any dog lovers out there. Right? A dog has one aspect of a soul. What's that soul? It's a nefesh. Right? We call it the nefesh behemoth. It's the animalistic side. Everybody has that. Right? Jew or non-Jew has it. But when a dog dies, what happens? Nothing. Dog goes, my language, dog goes poof. That's it. Even if you tell me the dog's a reincarnated soul, and that soul's going to get judged after it comes out of the dog or whatever, it's still the dog dies. Right? Dog doesn't have its own soul, its own spiritual soul that it's going to get a portion of the world to come. Right? When the dog dies, again, no offense to any dog lovers out there, when a dog dies, that's it. Right? Nothing happens. Right? He's got the nefesh behemoth, he's got the animalistic side, that's it. Right? There's no repercussions for his actions, etc. So that's a terrible thing. Right? It's a terrible thing because it's cut off. Right? It's spiritually cut off. Now, we're not talking about a case where someone is so bad that God wants to give them their olam haba, their next world in this world, which can happen. Right? Which means, technically speaking, that a person, for whatever mitzvahs they did, whatever good things they did in this world, they would get the benefit, the merit of that mitzvah in this world, even though you'll tell me schar mitzvah b'ayam aleikum, that merit for doing a mitzvah in this world a person doesn't get. Right? So what kind of merit would this person get? So it means that since they're so bad and God doesn't want to deal with them in the next world, he'll cut them off. What will he do? For whatever good deed that they did, they will get rewarded in this world, and then it's game over. Right? Then in the next world, they're not going to have a portion. Right? God's just going to give them everything now, and they get wiped off the face of the map. They get spiritually cut off. When they die, nothing happens. Right? That's the worst case scenario. But for most people, not so bad. Right? God's going to have mercy on them, and they'll have some sort of portion of the world to come. Right? But imagine, right? The Gemara tells us, a person doesn't prepare Erev Shabbos, he shouldn't be able to get to eat on Shabbos. Right? So if he doesn't prepare in this world, that's what it means. He doesn't prepare properly, why should he have a portion in the world to come? Even if he has a small portion over here, right? It only seems like it's temporary. Right? Because he looked at this world as the ultimate. So measure for measure, the next world, according to him, was temporary. Right? If that. So measure for measure, he's going to get punished. That in the next world, for him, it's only going to be temporary. Right? It's only going to be temporary. Now, if you think about it, let's go back in time. Let's go back in time to Abraham. Abraham came to the conclusion, whether at the age of 3 or 40, it's a difference of opinion. He came to the conclusion that we live in a world of design. Right? He looked at nature, looked at the stars, right? He looked at a lot of things in this world and understood there must be one creator. And for that creator, there's an obligation to serve him. So good. There'll be an obligation. There'll be an obligation to serve him. He came up, with a lot of things to do in this world to serve God, right? It says that the Avos, Avraham, Yitzhak, and Yaakov, kept the Torah before it was given, right? So they instituted certain things, right, that we do, we even do today. But, what their Torah looked like is a good question, right? We're not going to get into. But in general, he understood and passed it down to his kids that we live in a world of design. So if there's a world of design, then the person that must be served is a designer, right? Makes sense, right? That somebody who designed the world now deserves to be served. So when you look at the Torah, right, he gave us a book, the designer gave us a book, right? Exactly what to do. So therefore, if there's a designer, we have an obligation to serve him. Now that being said, if we look at nature, as brought down by the Chovos HaLevavos, as he says in Duties of the Heart, look into nature, look in the human body, right? There are many things to look at in this world to show that it cannot have happened haphazardly, right? It cannot have been just thrown together, by accident in some sort of primordial soup, right? All of a sudden you have those amino acids and other things together and bam! All of a sudden there's a Big Bang. There's not a contradiction necessary to the Big Bang, right? But scientists will say there was some sort of, something happened and the earth came into being. And the earth was set up the way it is. Well, how exactly does that work? I mean, if you take an ink dropper, drop it on a piece of paper, drop, some of these drops of ink, it's not going to produce the same thing every single time. It's going to look different. Some are bigger drops, some are light, some are smaller, right? Regardless of what they are, it's not going to look the same. So if that's the case, how could someone say, well, we had this Big Bang and everything's set up the way it is because of what happened? I mean, for all times, right? It's a little bit hard. It's a little bit hard to say because, the way nature is set up, the fact that you have a seed of an apple or the seed of a orange you plant at the ground, all things being equal, enough water, enough light, it's going to grow, right? There's DNA in the seed that's going to allow it to grow. Very good. They're going to say, well, why is it like that? Right? What do you mean? That's the nature of an apple seed. Well, again, why? Maybe it's going to be different, maybe to change, maybe this. So we say, no, God put it into motion. God set it up, and for all times, this is the way it's going to be. That's how we're going to have food. Put it in the ground, right? You water it, gets enough sunlight, all things being equal, it should grow. And that's how we get food. So there's DNA in all these things in order for it to reproduce. I mean, just as a side point, we could manipulate things in this world and produce things that we probably shouldn't. Right? That would be forbidden because you're playing with nature. But God doesn't stop us. Right? But nonetheless, you have certain things. When they're put together. Right? You got something genetically modified. Right? You put it together. And the thing that comes out of it cannot reproduce. For example, you take a horse and a donkey. You put them together. God doesn't stop it. You put it together. What do you get? A mule. Mule's a tremendously strong animal. Right? Very powerful. Very helpful in many ways. There's only one problem with the mule. It's sterile. Right? So when you're playing with God's creation, even for a Noahide, it should be forbidden to do this. Be that as it may. God doesn't stop it. But if you see that the end result is something that is sterile, there's something wrong. Right? Why should it not be able to reproduce? Because you say, we tested genetically. And genetically, there's an issue with the mule. Very good. Right? It's a genetic issue. That means you shouldn't have been playing with it. Right? You shouldn't have put it together. Shouldn't put a horse and a donkey together. Shouldn't allow it to happen. You tell me it's a strong animal, this, that, so what? Right, but the end result is it's sterile. So in order to make another one, right, you still have to do the same thing, put a donkey and a horse together. Right, otherwise it's not going to happen. So, certainly playing with nature, is a problem, but, a person, when you look into things in this world, you think about things a little bit in this world. We understand, as we mentioned before, through nature, through the human body, the miracles that occur. Right? Many, many miracles that occur. So it's impossible when you see the DNA, of a seed reproduce. When you see a human, reproduce. And a child is born. And how the human body works is nothing short of miraculous. Right? When we understand that and put it in our minds, we understand that this has to be way of design. Right? Because all things being equal, right? A man and a woman, get together, or I guess you can form in a petri dish also. Right? But in general, we put them together, all things being equal, they should produce a child. Right? There are no complications. And that child has characteristics of both. And the child inside the womb survives for 9 months. Right? Doesn't need anything, gets all the nutrients from the mother. And then the child's born, can't do anything itself. Right? Can't eat by itself. Can't do anything. Right? It has to be taught, has to learn, has to grow. Right? But totally helpless. So 9 months it's amazing. 9 months gets all its nourishment, everything else. It's in the sack, all things being equal. Baby comes out healthy. Unbelievable miracle. Right? No question. The bones, the fingers, everything. Everything that a person has is part of the body. It works in an unbelievable way. Right? You just look at the eye and all the different things that go into a person being able to see. Right? It's an incredible thing. Right? So, if a person would look into nature more, would think about this world not being haphazard, but the world as a world of design. So that means, as the Chosel Vavos says, since there's a designer, right, there's an absolute designer, which he goes on to prove why, right, why and how there is an absolute designer, and there's only one. Right, so that being said, there's an obligation to serve him. So when we see it that way, and a person understands that they're finite, which everybody does, right? We're not going to live here forever. So how in the world, if we understand through nature, through science, of all the miracles and everything that goes on, how can it be that a person looks at this world as the ultimate? I mean, we could be a little bit depressing. We could say, well, what is, what is the purpose of life? Person does good in school, go to a good college so you can get a job, get married, have a couple kids, maybe a dog, a couple dogs, whatever. Work to in your 60s, retire, see the world, and die. Kind of depressing. Right? It kind of shows that a person, that type of mentality, where's meaning? How are they going to have meaning in life? People say, well, I find satisfaction in my job. I find satisfaction in this. They get caught up in politics. They get caught up in sports. They get caught up in entertainment. Right? There are a lot of things. A lot of things that's very easy to get caught up in. But one thing that we have to remember is the more caught up you are, the less likely you're going to do anything in the spiritual realm. Right? You're not going to follow the designer. You're caught up by the everyday. So you're going to say, so a person will say what? They'll say, okay, how do I know there's a world to come? Right? You have to show me there's a world to come. The last time I read the Torah from cover to cover, right? At least from the book of Genesis to the end of the book of Deuteronomy. In my book, it doesn't say explicitly there's such a thing as Olam Haba. there is such a thing as the next world. So they're going to say, no, there are hints, right? There are hints in different places, but 100% true, it's not written explicitly. Right? One possible reason I heard someone explain, right, if you're only talking about doing mitzvahs for the sake of the next world, even though we understand we're going to get merit in the next world, but if a person only speaks about doing the mitzvahs in the next world, they end up like the Muslims. Why? Because all they talk about is Olam Haba. You know, they're only talking about, you know, the 70 virgins they're going to get, you know, when they get to the next world. I don't know what women get, but, you know, they're going to get all these good things in the next world I'm doing. This is the next world, that's the next world. Everything's about Olam Haba and what they're going to get. So I heard someone explain that, you know, if Jews spoke about that, and said, okay, I'm doing this for the sake of Olam Haba, that for the sake of Olam Haba, right? They could justify doing certain things that are wrong, right? Because I'm doing it for the sake of Olam Haba, right? Now again, bring up a bad case here, but, you know, talk about the Muslims, so, you know, their mitzvah is to kill people. Don't believe like they do, right? And all the good things they're going to get. I don't think that's, you know, that's the reason we don't speak about it, but, you know, possible. In any case, we understand that we're going to get rewarded in the next world. Now, if you'd ask most people, why do you keep the mitzvahs? Right? Someone explained to me many years ago. He said, you know, you go ask your rabbis why you keep Torah and mitzvahs. You know, they're going to tell you because, you know, you're going to get a portion of the world to come. Now, for a lot of people, you know, that may be enough, or some people. At least they're afraid because they know there's going to be reward and punishment. Right? But a person has to understand, as Mesos Chaim brings out in his introduction, and he says if a person lives this world, he lives in this world for the sake of pleasure, for the sake of desire, so then you would equate that with money, power. So whoever, you know, gets the most or whatever wins. Right? That should be, in theory. What does that have to do with spirituality? So what happens? What happens when someone starts at the top of the chain? Someone's born as a Kennedy. I mean, not a great thing. Family's been totally cursed. But, you know, let's say, or they've been born into, I don't know, they've been born into the Rockefeller family. Right? Tremendous money, tremendous wealth. I think they're still tremendously wealthy, right? And, you know, so that's it. They grew up with a silver spoon. Everything's good. Everything's good. So what does that have to do with power, money, this, that? They're already starting with millions, right? They're not struggling, not raising themselves up, this, that. They're already insiders when they're born. Says the Ramchal, says Moshe Chaim was Zecher, Tzaddik Levrocha, may his name be blessed. So he says, in path of the just, how can it be for this world? It's only for the sake of this world. Right? You know, it doesn't make sense also. Someone can be born in this world and be born a vegetable. Right? You know, mentally challenged. Can have, you know, can have other ailments, whatever it is. So you're going to say, wow, this world's the ultimate? They got the raw end of the stick? Right? So how do you explain what happens to them? Right? You're going to, you know, so people say, that you know, a child born that way, is it their fault? It's not their fault, right? As long as, you know, the mother didn't smoke crack while she was pregnant or whatever, and the kid comes out deformed. It's not the child's fault. There's an end result. There are the repercussions for our actions. But all things being equal, right? A child gets a little bit less oxygen at birth, or gets strangled, you know, by the umbilical cord, whatever. You know, whatever before it's born, it can cause havoc, cause brain damage, other things, right? So Judaism holds that until a person is punishable, comes of age, what they do before that, they're not liable. Of course, if they cause damage when they're a child, you know, the parent should pay or not, right? It's a whole question. But for argument's sake, when a child is born, he's not born guilty. Right? Against the Christians. Not born in original sin. Comes out with a clean slate. So how do you explain, you know, what happens if a child, you know, is born messed up? Right? Is born mentally challenged or has other issues. The only explanation that makes any sense, right, as we mentioned a number of times, but all good things, all good things, bear repeating. And that is that there's an idea of a soul. There's an idea, the Torah says clear, there's reward and punishment. And there's a possibility, as the Zohar tells us, if a person doesn't get proper judgment, or for some reason has to come back to this world, that's not enough to go to hell, to go to Gehenna, get fixed up. It's a purification process, painful one, right? To get fixed up and come back to this world. Regardless of that, there's this, I shouldn't say regardless, there's this idea, right? A soul can come back because it didn't fulfill its obligation, or it has to come back and suffer because of things it did in a previous life. Now, when you explain it in that sense, let's say, the soul has to come back, it has to come back in a messed up body, right? It has to come back in a messed up body in order to get its atonement, right? For whatever reason. Maybe, that soul in the previous life, lived in this world, didn't help others, wasn't compassionate, etc., didn't know how to give. So he has to be taught what it means to give to him or her, because he can't do anything for himself or herself, right? We're not going to discriminate here. So in either case, that soul may have to go through that. There could be any number of reasons why, but the point is, when we look at a child, and the child is blameless, child being born has done nothing wrong, right? No sins. If there are no sins, then why does the child come out that way? Right? There's seemingly no reason why a child should come out that way. The only reason we can come up with, right, that makes any sense, is this idea of reward and punishment. This idea that we have a soul, and that the soul is supposed to do the right thing inside the body. If it doesn't do the right thing, there's punishment, right? There'll certainly be punishment. Torah says some things are more severe, some things less severe. Right? But at the end of the day, God is going to write it all up after 120 years. He's going to decide what punishment a person should get. And one of the punishments could be come back to this world. No soul wants to come back, right? One soul, the soul doesn't want to come back, not interested in coming back. So that's the only explanation we have, right? The only explanation that makes any sense of why a child should come up messed up, right? Should come in a messed up body. So that being said, when we look at the world, and we look at what our purpose is in this world, right? Our purpose in this world is to return our soul the way it was given. Pure. Right? Even though it says in Ecclesiastes, no one's gone around in this world without sinning. No righteous person has been in this world without sinning. That may be true. So the question is, though, how to limit that. So if our goal is to draw close to God, do what He wants, because He gave us a book, right? He manufactured it Himself, whether you're a Jew or non-Jew. Non-Jew has certain things He has to do also. So irrelevant, whatever we're supposed to do, our goal is to come back and draw close. Draw close to God. That is what we're doing here. So if a person lives in this world and they live for themselves, they live for the next high, they live for the next enjoyment, they live for the next enjoyment, whatever it is. They go from one thing to the next. So they think this world is the ultimate, that there is no next world. Because they think, God forbid, as someone once told me, when I die, I'm going 6 feet under. And that's it. I said, well, I hope for your sake you're right, because if I'm right, you're in trouble. Right? So there has to be something more There has to be something beyond, because otherwise the way the world is set up makes absolutely no sense. There are people that are horrible, how they act to others, etc. And it looks like they have everything. Wealth, fame. There are people that work hard, never seem to get anywhere, lower middle class, whatever the case is, seem to struggle, have difficulties. But they're nicer people. Right? As the old statement goes, nice people finish last. Right? So you got to do what you can to survive in this world. So you can see it both ways. You can see someone who's a horrible person, but financially is doing very well. You can see people that strive hard and work hard, have good character traits, more or less, and they struggle, and they suffer. Right? Read the book of Job. It doesn't make any logical sense, in a lot of ways. But if we do understand there's something beyond us, there's something that, we have to give din v'cheshbon. We have to give what we did in this world. It's going to be judgment. For what we did. The Torah says clear. You go, oh, where'd you get that from? You're making it up. It doesn't say that in my Torah. Read the Shema. What's the second paragraph of the Shema say? If you do this, good. If not, you're punished. You don't keep Shabbos, you're punished. You don't do this, you're punished. Question is, some things are more severe, less severe. But make no mistake, the Torah is all about either doing the right thing or doing the wrong thing. There's nothing in between. So, if a person gets stuck in this mentality, and he gets caught up with sports and movies and, all these other things, his spiritual side gets demolished. So therefore, when they live in this world, they think this world is the ultimate. In this world, they think, okay, I know I'm going to die, right, eventually, but they think, they don't really think about it. They think it's going to happen in a long time. Right, when it happens in a long time, they'll be ready to go, but they want to enjoy. They don't have any restrictions. Right, someone once told me, he said, it's unbelievable, I can do whatever I want. You have all these restrictions, and you're 10 times happier than me. I said, right, kills you, doesn't it? Right? It's not such a crazy idea, because, we believe we have the truth. Right? We believe this is absolute truth. There's nothing to talk about. If someone's free to do whatever they want, they go crazy. They go crazy eventually because they don't know how to, sustain what they do. Right? And it's usually a disaster. Depending how people, live their lives. They don't have an anchor. They don't have a moral anchor to give them guidance. The only anchor they have is, well, if I do this, it's against the law. If I don't do this, maybe I won't get caught. I will get caught, whatever the case is. Right? But if it's against the law, you'll be a lot more careful. So living in this world, says the Zohar, if you live in this world, and you look at this world as the ultimate, then as we mentioned before, there is a next world. The next world is the spiritual world. So if you lived it like this world is the ultimate, and you lived as like you're going to be here forever in this world, what's going to be in the next world? Even if you get there. It's going to be like temporary. Right? But if a person lives in this world to be close to his Creator, again, whether a Jew or non-Jew, right? His goal is to be close to his Creator. To do what the designer wants us to do. And it's a good thing he gave us a book. He manufactured it himself. Very good. So he gave us what to do. Gave us how to do it. That being said, even though we fail, even though we don't even accomplish half or a quarter what we really should be doing, right? Even if that's the case, then it doesn't matter. Right? Not that it doesn't matter, but the goal is we want to be the best people we can be according to the way the Torah wants us. So, we're living in this world, we're living in this world temporarily, and we understand we're living in this world temporarily. So therefore, we have to make the most. We have to make the most of what we're doing. Making the most of what we're doing means that even though I have to make a livelihood, Right? A person, when he's not making a livelihood, he's got no other obligations. He's got to be learning Torah. Right? All you men out there, got to learn Torah. That's our obligation. So, learning Torah puts a person on the right path. Keeping the mitzvahs puts a person on the right path. We may not always do what we're supposed to. Right? We don't always reach our potential. We still have to strive to do that. But we have to understand what the important things are in this world. And the important things in this world are spiritual things. Right? Physicality in this world means nothing. Enjoyment in this world means nothing. Realistically. Because at the end of the day, for example, person needs an ice cream cone. Very good. Love ice cream. A certain amount of time later, goes out of the body. How much did you enjoy it? 10 minutes. 15 minutes. However long it takes you to eat that ice cream. I'm not telling people not to eat ice cream. But remember, the enjoyment is fleeting. Right? It's not something that's going to last. Because then a person wants something else. Right? He wants to enjoy something else. So go on to the next thing. How long is he going to enjoy that for? 20 minutes. Half an hour. Right? An hour, whatever it is. It goes from one thing to the next. They don't think about their lives. They don't think about what's important. So if they don't think about what's important, if they actually get to a place where it is important, they never prepared themselves. They're not ready. So it says the Zohar, measure for measure, you're going to be there like a guest. You'll be on the outside looking in. Right? You're not going to understand a heck of a lot that's going on. It could be person had kids or people he helped or whatever. And he gets added mitzvahs, he gets more understanding, whatever, things can change. But in general, if so many people are steeped in this world and they're stuck in the physicality of this world, it's almost impossible, not impossible, but it's almost impossible for a person to wake up. Some people are so far gone. It's like trying to start a Jeep with a 9-volt. You can try it. It doesn't work. So at the end of the day, we have to prepare ourselves. We have to look at this world like the Chaim did. Because Chaim, had a visitor from America. And this visitor was so appalled by the house that the Chaim was living in. Right? He had old rickety furniture, etc. So Chaim said to this wealthy American, he said, "Where's your furniture?" He goes, "Rabbi, what do you mean? I don't bring my furniture everywhere I go. I'm only traveling through. I'm only passing through here." So Chaim said, "I'm also passing through." Most of us are not on that level. But we have to understand, we're living in this world, we're passing through. It's temporary. My Rabbi, maybe told me a number of years ago when I first met him, more than 23 years ago. Right? So, he told me, and I didn't really know who he was and what his stature was and how great he was and whatever. But he told me point blank once that, I just want you to know I don't live in this world. I'm already preparing myself for the next world. I wasn't that old at the time. Relatively speaking. It's only in his early 70s. But he said, "I'm not living in this world anymore." And I'm like, "Say what?" Like, "What do you mean not living in this world?" I was like, "If I pinch you, you're going to scream." Depends how hard, obviously. Right? You look human. You eat. Sleep. You do everything like a human. What do you mean don't live in this world? So he said at some point, a person already has to prepare himself for the transformation of the next world. In other words, we're not here forever. We don't know how long we're here for. King David says, right, the average age is 70. We get 70 years. Right? If we have strength, we get 80 years. I know you have longer lifespans. Whatever, some people die younger, older, whatever, it doesn't matter. Right? But the point is, a person hits a certain age, you got to start thinking about the next world. You got to start thinking about proper tshuva. You got to start thinking, about this great judgment, which is going to be after a person dies. It sounds kind of bad. Kind of, what's the word? Kind of, I don't know what the right word is, but whatever. It's, it's morbid's the word, right? It sounds a little bit morbid. When you think about it, death, judgment, pain, definitely sounds kind of morbid, right? But, but at the end of the day, we have to think, what in the world am I doing here? What is my purpose? Right? Am I here to eat more ice cream? To eat more other things or whatever? Get enjoyment so much. I'm not saying a person has to live an austere life. Right? We don't believe in that either. Right? We're allowed to enjoy this world, but a person has to be careful. A person has to be careful because it's very easy to get sucked in. And once a person is sucked in, the more they're sucked in, the harder it is to get out. So that's why there are all kinds of decrees that the rabbis made in order for us to stay in the right path. Right? In order to stay on the straight and narrow. So people say, come on. They made a fence and this. Come on, you really think that because of this I have to do this or whatever? But they understood the nature of man. Right? They certainly weren't stupid. They understood the desires of man. Right? So, a lot of things we do are guidelines. Right? They are fences around the fences to make sure you don't come to do something more severe. Right? The evil inclination is not going to come. Just keep this in mind. The evil inclination is not going to come and say, I want you to be Machal Shabbos. I want you to desecrate Shabbos. Right? If you're a Jew. Not going to say that. But it could be, there's going to be a lot of things before that where the evil inclination makes like a little bit of a chink in the armor. And therefore, by making a chink in the armor, he gets stronger. And over time, eventually, he says, what do you need all this for? What do you need to rip toilet paper before Shabbos? What do you need to do all these things for? How do you really know God exists? I mean, it can go very far. So therefore, a person has to nip it in the bud. A person has to make sure that they have these guidelines. Because if you don't have these guidelines, you do whatever you want. It just goes from one bad thing to another. So you're going to say, wow, you really think people are immoral? Yes. That was easy. Why do I think that? Because they don't have guidelines. And if they don't have proper guidelines, they justify whatever they do. People say, well, I never cheated on my taxes. I never did this. Did you use a loophole that you weren't allowed to? You just didn't get caught. There are people who cheat on their taxes, and they justify it. Why should I give the government so much money? I lie about this, lie about that, right? And they do it in a way, where, at the end of the day, make sure, they're going to make sure they don't get caught. Right? Let's say, for argument's sake, they don't get caught, but they justify. They justify what they do. That's not being immoral. Is it against the law? But they'll justify what they do. Right? And we do it all the time. Right? A person should have done this, should have done that. They don't. They're lazy, whatever. We justify it. A person will say, it was permissible for me to speak Lashon Hara against this person. Right? Even, everybody knows it. I'm allowed to say it. It's true. Let's say for argument's sake it is true. So what? Doesn't it's not a mitzvah for me to repeat it. You have to have a purpose in repeating it. There are, a lot of guidelines the Chaim gives when you're allowed to repeat things. There are a number of steps before you can do it. And people say, but it's true, and everybody knows it. Even so. Right? So there are a lot of different levels over here, but the bottom line is that a person does not want to get stuck in this world. Meaning, you don't want to get stuck. You don't want to get stuck and caught up in things that don't matter. Because one part of hell, I will tell you, at least as far as I understand, is the embarrassment, when a person is getting judged and he sees all the actions that they do, that they did, what they should have done. At the end of the day, part of the embarrassment, part of hell of this embarrassment is seeing what you could have done. That potential. I mean, also what you actually did. Person's gonna be totally embarrassed for what they did. They're gonna have to try and justify, and God could say either yay or nay. No, I didn't really mean this. Okay, let's go deep into your heart. What did you really think? Right? It's going to be painful. You know, I don't think there's any other way to slice it. Right? It's definitely going to be painful. So a person can learn these few ideas and work hard. Doesn't matter what the world's doing. It's irrelevant. We don't care what the world does. We want to do what God wants us to do. Right? We want to go in the spiritual way. If you're not going the spiritual way, you're drowning. There's nothing in between. Right? We said many times, I don't want to be mediocre. I want to be better than mediocre. I want to strive. I want to do the right thing. I might fail. I might fall flat in my face. You pick yourself up and that's it. Brush yourself off and you get up. You know, and you continue to, hopefully, to do the right thing. But it's work. It takes a lot of hard work. So, the ultimate idea over here is that it says in Ethics of Our Fathers and Pirkei Avos, it says that a person should serve God even without getting reward. That's the highest level. Because you might tell me there is Omar, but there's not, whatever, it doesn't matter. We're serving God even if there is no reward. Because we believe it's the right thing to do. You tell me in the back of my mind, you know, you understand you're going to get reward, but we're doing it because we believe it's right. There are people out there, and this is a whole other talk, right? But, you know, there are people out there that will keep things only because they're afraid they're going to fry in hell forever. So what kind of mitzvah service is that? You know, it's only out of fear. You have to have fear. But you see, you know, fear is not going to lead to love of God. Love of God will lead to fear, but not the other way around. Right? You have to love what you do. You have to believe in what you do. But you also have to have, you know, awe of the God above you and what could be. Right? So, you prepare in this world. Preparation in this world is all about doing what God wants. Right? We know there's going to be a portion, you know, we're going to get rewarded for it. Okay. You know, it still doesn't matter for one very simple reason. And that simple reason is I'm going to do what I do because it's right. You know, because the Torah tells me it's right. No other reason. Makes more sense, makes less sense. Doesn't matter. This is what we have to do. Right? So if we live in this world as the ultimate, the next world's not going to be the ultimate. You're not going to get the benefit of what you should. For a very simple reason, because you don't live this world like you should have. So therefore, why should you get the benefit of the next world and living it the way God wants you to? You didn't prepare. Right? You didn't prepare, but you got there. Right? And this argument, you know, for argument's sake, you got there. But you got there and you're lacking. You're lacking so much that, you know, the fact that you looked at this world as the ultimate, and I'm dwelling in this world, then it has to be the opposite in the next world. It has to be that in the spiritual world, you work so hard on physicality. Well, you know, you didn't work that hard on spirituality. If you go into a spiritual world, how much of that spirituality are you going to take with you? How much you're going to benefit from it? That's something to think about, what we're doing here in this world. So I want to remind everyone, I have a Facebook page, Beyond Orthodox Conversion to Judaism. You can take a look at my blog at orthodoxconversion.com. I have a class in the book of Leviticus every Sunday at 9 a.m. New York time. I have a question and answer session twice a week, usually Tuesday and Thursday in the morning, 10 o'clock New York time, 5 o'clock Israel time. And I have a class on Duties of the Heart. That is every Tuesday at 9 o'clock at night, New York time, and a website, subscription website, for all kinds of good things. The book of Derech Hashem, the entire book of the Way of God, by the Ramchal, talks about why God created the world, purpose of man, reincarnation, all that. Also, the ways of the righteous, I'm in the middle of that. Path of the just, I'm in the middle of that. All my classes on the book of Exodus. Any case, there's a lot going on, there's a lot to do. You can contact me, Rabbi Chaim Coffman at gmail.com, RABBI CHAIMCOFFMAN at gmail.com. Wishing you a great Shabbos.